For all those buyers who've been waiting for the foreclosures to start, you will be happy to hear that Black Knight just announced that 450,000 homeowners are now underwater as of the third quarter of 2022. Black Knight also said that this is a clear sign that the housing market has left that pandemic era boom that we have all been in. In fact, 8% of the people that bought a home and got a mortgage on it in 2022 are now underwater. And 40% of the people that bought a home in 2022 only have 10% equity in their home. For the fourth straight month, home prices have actually pulled back at the national level. Black Knight's home price index showed that in October, prices declined by 0.3%. While this is the smallest decline since the peak that we saw in June, home price annual growth continued to fall. The HPI now shows that home price growth year over year is up 9.3%, but down 3.2% from June. So with all of this news, let's talk about what's going on with foreclosures. And when will we see foreclosures actually hit the market? And who will likely be affected the most by all of this? So as the pandemic shutdown happened, many people were able to enter into forbearance. This meant that even if you couldn't pay your mortgage, you could not be foreclosed on. This went on for about a year and a half, allowing those that had been affected financially by the pandemic shutdown to stay in their homes. This was a new thing for people, and it allowed homeowners to push off their payments. Now, at the peak of forbearance, which was in 2021, there were about 4 million homeowners that were actively in forbearance, taking advantage of this program. This is when the foreclosure talk started, saying that all these people that were in forbearance were ultimately going to end up losing their homes. Five-star global chairman Ed Delgado said this:
"The presumption at the start of the pandemic was that there was going to be this gradual swelling of foreclosures as forbearances expired and consumers had nowhere to go."
This is not what happened, though. Our housing market actually heated up even hotter than it had already been. And by the time we got to 2022, there were only about 1 million people left in forbearance. And that number was falling quickly. Homeowners were actually getting themselves out of forbearance by either becoming current on their mortgage, negotiating with their lender, or selling their home. So all of those foreclosures that everyone thought was going to come to the market right at the beginning of the pandemic all went away. So now what is happening with foreclosures? Well, we have seen an uptick in foreclosures since the beginning of 2022, but that is only because the forbearance and the moratorium on foreclosures has ended. And that is when we started to see articles telling us that foreclosures were up by 300%. Sounds scary, right? Well, when you only had 83 notices and then it jumps to 400, then they can make statements like that, even though the number is still low. We have actually stayed closer to that 200 number for notices of trustee sale month over month, and that number is actually lower than what we saw before the pandemic. Now, I actually wanted to come in here so you can see what these numbers look like, because it's a very telling story. So this is all the way back in the 2008, 2009, and you can see what kind of spike we saw. Now, again, this is notices of trustee sale. And this is where we are down here right now. This right here was that forbearance time, the moratorium where no one could be foreclosed on. And this is where we are now. But the big thing to note here is that once somebody gets a notice of trustee sale, they still have 90 days to become current, modify their loan, somehow work with their lender to come out of foreclosure. So just because someone gets this notice of trustee sale does not mean that these are all of the homes that are actually going into active foreclosure. Another thing to note here is that Arizona is not a judicial state, meaning that we don't have to take all of our foreclosures to court. So this is one of the other reasons why when this gigantic swell happened in 2008, 2009, we were able to get through it so quickly, where other states that had a judicial state where they actually had to take every one of their foreclosures to court, it took them a long time to get through all of those foreclosures. Now, this is the chart that you really need to look at, because this shows you the actual trustees' sales by month. So again, all the way back to 2007, you can see all of these that actually sold. And then here we are down here. Now, this right here, March of 2020, this was right when the shutdown happened. We had 46 notices, and we had seven that were sold to a third party and 46 that were reverted back to the beneficiary. And then we kind of came down here and it hovered. Again, this was a time that we could not be doing any foreclosures. There were still some things going on. And now here's where we are, November. 19 notices sold to a third party. 1. Only one has sold to a third party. So as you can see from these numbers, it is quite drastic, and we just do not have the number of foreclosures that everyone really feels like we have coming. Okay, so to further demonstrate just how little the numbers are for foreclosures that are actually actively listed in MLS right now, I wanted to actually take you into MLS. Right now we have 16. Now understand, this is everything that's listed in MLS. And so this goes outside of just the Phoenix area, quite far actually, but it shows you how little foreclosures we actually have on the market right now. So this can show you, this is $1. I'm not sure what's going on with this one, but obviously something a little hinky. So I mark this as a wash. I don't even look at it. But we're in Sun Valley, Cochise, Tumacacori, Douglas. I'm just talking about the cities that these are in. Douglas, Ajo, Miami, Douglas, Phoenix, Payson, Page, that is a test one, Sun City, Buckeye, and one in Scottsdale in Desert Mountain. So this is the number of foreclosures that we actually have. There's 16, but again, I take out 2, so we're closer to like 14. And these are the ones that are actively owned by the bank currently, that are physically trying to sell these homes. And now on the flip side, just like I showed you with that chart out of the Cromford report, these are pre-foreclosures. So these have not gone back to the bank yet. They're trying to sell these before they do go back to the bank. And we've got 8. And again, Maricopa, Surprise, Maricopa, Phoenix, Tempe, Gilbert, and Fountain Hills. That's it. Those are the only foreclosures that we have currently on the market or pre-foreclosures on the market at this time. Rick Sarga, Executive Vice President of Market Intelligence of Adam Data, said this.
We may be at or near a peak level of foreclosure activity for 2022. While foreclosure starts and foreclosure completions both increased compared to last year's artificially low levels, they declined from last month, and lenders often put a moratorium on foreclosures during the holiday season.
Now, even with all of this, there are a few states that have had an increase in their foreclosure rate. Those states are Illinois, Delaware, and New Jersey. But here in Arizona, we are just not seeing it. Even with all of this and the data that I show people, I still have those that want to tell me that these banks are holding on to foreclosures and that there's going to be a wave of them released at some point. This is kind of like that shadow inventory that everyone was talking about between about 2008 and 2010 that everyone said was coming that never came. So as a buyer, if you are holding out until you see more foreclosures come and flood the market here in Arizona, I would not hold my breath. Now, I do think we will see more foreclosures come on the market, but unless we see massive job loss, I do not see a wave of foreclosures coming to hit our market. And even those that do lose their job and own a home, I see them doing so many things before they actually let their home go. Things like getting another job, getting a roommate, doing anything and everything they can to save their home. And for those that are underwater on their home, it does not make sense to sell your home or let it go back to the bank if you can withstand the bumpy ride. You have to live somewhere, and why not withstand this bumpy ride in a home that you own that will appreciate again? I know many people that did this when the market crashed in 2008. They just held on. And guess what? They waited long enough where the market came back and they actually saw their home appreciate greatly. They were able to sell it, make money, and move on. Now, if you are looking for a deal right now in our market, take a look at this video where I talk about all the deals to find with these iBuyers that are out there. If I can answer any questions for you, please feel free to reach out. As always, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.